Exposed, how I went from being sold to a heartless earl to finding unexpected love in 30 days. Sarah Hayes could hardly believe it was happening. Just a month ago, she was flipping burgers at the local diner, dreaming of her very own cafe. Now, she was standing in an expansive, opulent parlor of Carter Manor, gazing at the man who bought her life for an unforgivable sum. Earl James Carter, tall and austere, with a cold demeanor that sent shivers down her spine. Torn between disbelief and despair, she thought of her father's mounting debts. "This is for him," she whispered to herself, clenching her fists to suppress the urge to scream. Days turned into weeks, and every morning, Sarah awoke to the weight of her new reality, the chiseled facades of wealth surrounding her, built on the backs of those who lost everything. Wealth was a prison, she realized, isolating the Earl in his grand fortress while she remained trapped, aching for connection. The servants whispered about her like she was an exhibit, and the townsfolk distanced themselves, stung by the apparent betrayal of one of their own. Amidst this turmoil, Sarah clung to the values instilled by her hard-working parents and the support from her community. She remembered gathering with worried friends, creating a round table of comfort, exchanging stories over coffee and laughter, teaching her the true essence of life. Yet, standing beneath crystal chandeliers, she felt hollow. She longed to hear the familiar sounds of the diner, the sizzle of bacon, the chatter of her co-workers, the laughter of patrons enjoying a simple meal. Those warm evenings felt like a lifetime ago. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Then, one sunny afternoon in the garden, everything changed. Tom, the local farmer, with his warm smile and kind eyes, stumbled upon her escape from reality. "What's a girl like you doing in a place like this?" He chuckled, plucking flowers for his ailing mother. Hope flickered in her heart, igniting a longing that she thought was lost amid the riches. Their conversations blossomed like the daisies he brought her, chipping away at her walls and transforming her loneliness into laughter, but there were dark clouds brewing in her new life. Whispers of resentment from the townsfolk grew louder, and Sarah felt the tension thicken. As she navigated the Earl's world of pretense, she clung tightly to the identity that oatmeal breakfasts and jam jar conversations had given her. Torn between family loyalty and her own blossoming hopes, she stood at a crossroads. Her heart raced as she prepared for a confrontation, a moment that could shake the very foundations of Carter Manor. Would she have the courage to confront her new reality, challenge the prejudices that thrived, and perhaps mend the divide that threatened to tear their community apart? The storm was brewing, and so was Sarah's resolve, ready to rise against the tide of fate that seemed so unjust. The fate of love and freedom hung in the balance, and the next chapter held the answers to a future she dared to dream of. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows on the manicured lawns of Carter Manor. Sarah stood at the edge of the garden, her heart thundering in her chest. Today was the day. She could feel it in her bones. The crisp air was charged with urgency, as though the world around her was holding its breath, awaiting her next move. She had spent the morning pacing her room, running her fingers over the delicate lace curtains, the soft fabric brushing against her skin like a reminder of a life once filled with simple comforts. But this was no longer her life, at least, not the one she had dreamed of. Her dreams now felt overshadowed by the weight of expectations. Expectations placed on her by the Earl, the townsfolk, and, most importantly, herself. Tom's laughter rang in her ears, a vibrant melody amidst the stifling silence of the manor. She replayed their conversations, the way he opened her eyes to an unguarded world beyond the gates. He had inspired her, igniting a spark of courage that she didn't know lived inside her. But just as she felt buoyed by the sweet escape of his company, she sensed the looming shadow of judgment. Would they really see her? Would she still be Sarah from the diner, or just the girl bought with a fortune? With a deep breath, she stepped into the grand foyer. The marble floors stretched before her like a blank canvas. She spotted the Earl across the room, his back turned, seemingly lost in thought. But with every passing moment, she could feel the temperature drop, making her skin crawl under the weight of uncertainty. Could she even face him now? Sarah, his deep voice cut through the ambient chatter like a blade, causing her to falter. She glanced up, meeting those piercing blue eyes that had haunted her dreams since her arrival. "I need to speak with you." Confidence faltered in her throat, but she nodded. This was it. No more playing the part of the willing captive. She followed him to a quieter alcove, where the air felt thicker, heavy with all the things left unsaid. "You've been spending a great deal of time with that farmer," he remarked, his tone cool and unreadable. A flash of defiance ignited within her. "Tom is my friend, James. Something you wouldn't understand." His expression flickered, and for a moment, she saw a hint of something softer, a crack in the armor. "You don't belong there," he replied sharply, but she could sense the uncertainty behind his words. "You belong here, with me. Is that what you think?" She shot back, her heart racing. "A life confined to your expectations? With walls to guard against the world? I can't live like that. I refuse to let you dictate my happiness." Silence enveloped them, heavy and taut. The Earl's facade remained strong, but she could see the edges fraying. "You misunderstand my intentions, Sarah." His voice had softened, an undercurrent of something she couldn't quite name tugging at her heartstrings. "Then help me understand," she urged, the words spilling out before she could stop them. "What is it you want from me really?" At that moment, the Earl looked vulnerable, a man caught in the turmoil of his own making. She realized that perhaps they were both prisoners in their own ways, he in his wealth, and she in her circumstances. The moment hung between them, electric yet heavy with unspoken truths. Sarah felt her heart pounding, an insistence to push forward. "I want to help our town, James. I want to mend the bridges you've burned, find a way to unite our worlds." He stared at her, and for once, something melted away from his icy demeanor, but just as she thought they were reaching a breakthrough, Mary burst in, his stern housekeeper, with a furrowed brow. "My lord, there's been a disturbance in the village. We must act quickly." Sarah's heart sank. Would the storm that brewed outside also shatter her moment of hope? As they stepped out into the light, she saw a gathering of townsfolk beyond the gates, and fear lodged in her throat. Whatever it was, it could spell disaster for them both. In the split second before the doors closed behind them, she caught James's gaze. A mix of surprise and determination. "What are we about to face?" she whispered as they approached the crowd, bracing for what lay ahead. And as the voices rose around them, Sarah realized that the real battle was just beginning. Could she bridge the growing divide and bring hope not just to herself, but to everyone she cared about? The suspense filled the air, and she knew deep down everything was about to change. The crowd surged, a restless sea of faces, some puzzled, others angry. Sarah felt the heat of their stares, each one a question, a judgment, a plea. She glanced up at the Earl beside her. His jaw was set tight, as if bracing against an impending storm. "Shouldn't we address them?" she urged, her voice barely a whisper above the murmur. She sensed that time was slipping away. James nodded, his expression a mix of determination and anxiety. "I'll handle it," he said, but there was a hint of uncertainty in his eyes. "Just stay close." As they stepped into the gathering, the tension thickened, crackling with unspoken words. The townsfolk had congregated in a semicircle, their faces alight with various emotions: frustration, confusion, and beneath it all, a desperate hope. "Earl Carter." A voice rang out from the crowd, deep and piercing. It belonged to Mr. Langley, a respected elder of the village. "What do you have to say to us today? We've had enough of your silence." That ignited a rumble of agreement. Sarah's heart raced. This was exactly the moment she feared, a moment that could either shatter everything she had attempted to build or push her to fight for a future she desired. James stepped forward, lifting his chin as if to ward off the anger directed at him. I want to hear your concerns. Let us discuss whatever it is that's troubling you, he began, but his voice wavered. Troubling? You mean everything you've done? A woman shouted, her face flushed with emotion. You've turned your back on us, your own people. Your decisions have hurt this village. The words landed hard. Sarah stepped closer, a fire stirring inside her. They're right. She yelled out before she could think twice. Your decisions matter, James. You can't just avoid it. His eyes locked onto hers, surprise etching his features, but something in her words seemed to fuel him, strengthen his resolve. I didn't realize how far I had strayed, he admitted, his voice filling with sincerity. But I want to make it right. The crowd fell quiet, a rare moment of surprise weaving through them. But how? Mr. Langley pressed. Sarah felt her chance slipping away. I can help, she said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her heart. Let us listen to the people. Let us find out what they need. Together. A murmur of disbelief swept through the crowd. James looked at her, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. You would stand with me? He asked softly, almost as if he feared her answer. Someone has to, she replied, a fierce determination igniting within her. If we're going to heal this town, it can't be you alone. It needs all of us. With that, she turned to the villagers. What do you need? What can we do together to make things right? Slowly, voices began to rise, people speaking over one another, sharing their grievances and hopes. Each voice was a small thread weaving together a tapestry of community that had been neglected for too long. Sarah felt the weight of their words, each one a step toward unity. As the discussions continued, she noticed a change in James. The tension that had gripped him started to fade. He leaned in, focused on what was being said, his earlier distance replaced with engagement, but just as the atmosphere began to shift from anger to collaboration, another figure emerged from the back of the crowd, one that made Sarah's heart sink. Sarah. It was Tom. His voice resonated through the air, cutting straight to her. The warmth she had felt in his presence now tangled with concern. What are you doing here? Her stomach twisted. Should she stand next to James, the man she was growing to care for, or return to Tom, the friend who had shown her freedom? Would she be betraying one for the sake of the other, caught between two worlds? Sarah's heart raced even faster. Could she truly mend the divides while balancing this fragile alliance? The questions flooded her mind as the crowd's voices continued to rise in intensity around her. And in that vibrant swirl of emotion, she realized the choice wasn't just about loyalty, it was about finding herself amidst the chaos. Tom, she said. Her voice echoing the turmoil within. I want to unite us all. But would he understand that this goal meant everything to her? As the tension cracked in the air, Sarah knew one thing for sure, the real test of her courage had just begun. Would she rise to face her fear, or would she falter? Sarah's breath caught in her throat as she faced Tom. The hurt in his eyes was palpable, cutting deeper than any sharp word from the crowd. She could see the confusion swirling within him, just as it swirled in the very fabric of the gathering. Was he the past that couldn't let go, or the hope that could help her future? Sarah, you can't seriously think this is right, Tom urged, stepping forward in desperation. The noise of the crowd faded into a muted backdrop as his voice echoed with concern. He's the reason we've lost so much. But he wants to change, she countered, clenching her fists in determination. He realizes he's made mistakes. We need to give him a chance. With James still beside her, silence settled like fog over the crowd. James's chin had lifted slightly, his posture spoke of renewed confidence. This was not just about a noble trying to redeem himself, this was about a community rallying to reclaim what had been lost. Mr. Langley chimed in, his tone measured yet firm. Do we really want to trust him again? Is this a game to you, Earl Carter? The crowd murmured, their emotions as fiery as the sunlight hitting their worried faces. No. James raised his hands, attempting to calm the raging sea of emotions. I understand your distrust. I haven't been there when you needed me, but that has to change. Sarah believes in this, and I believe in her vision. Tom's frown deepened. And what about your vision? Is it just about playing the good man when it suits you? Sarah's heart sank. She had always appreciated Tom's honesty, but now, it felt like a weight pulling her under. She could feel the community's gaze, every eye awaiting a showdown, an answer that could either bridge a gap or deepen the divide. Tom, she said, voice steady, body shaking, you don't know the pain of standing on the other side, thinking this was all for nothing. She gestured toward James. You've seen what hiding does, it divides us. I'm not saying this is easy, but I want to believe we can turn this around. The words hung in the air, heavy with possibility. She felt vulnerable, yet stronger standing here with James, calling out for unity. What had started as her battle against fear had transformed into her desire for connection, something that sparked behind her heart and radiated outward. James reached out, gently grasping her arm and giving it a reassuring squeeze. Together, they looked toward the crowd now filled with bated breath. Each moment felt stretched, expectant. But just then, a voice broke through the tension, a low murmur morphing into laughter from the back of the crowd. Look at them, someone said, half-jokingly. Do you think they'll actually lead us or just trip over their own feet? Tom clenched his fists, but Sarah couldn't help the smile that tugged at her lips. She glanced at James, who was holding back an amused grimace. Whether they believe us or not, we still have to show them we mean what we say, he said, his voice lowering to a near whisper meant only for her. Another figure stepped forward, a young girl, no older than 16, her face painted with fear. You're going to fight for us, right? She asked, wide-eyed. You can't let us down. Sarah's heart ached, but a sense of resolve filled her. We won, she promised. We will stand together, every single one of us, and we will rebuild. The warmth of connection surged within her. She was not just fighting for her own vision, they were all in this together. Yet, deep down, she felt the looming question: could she really unite the town, or was she setting herself up for heartbreak? As the crowd erupted into whispers, some unsure and others inspired, Sarah could see that her journey was just beginning. She caught a glimpse of Tom, still holding his ground, wanting her back, a silent plea etched into his expression. And in that whirlwind of emotions and lost loyalties, as hope flickered in their eyes, Sarah realized that she had choices to make. Could a voice of reason start a movement? Or was this a road that led her deeper into unknown heartache? As her heart raced with uncertainty, Sarah didn't know how tomorrow would unfold. But one thing lingered painfully in her mind: her path was fraught with choices, and navigating them could cost her everything. The chatter of the crowd morphed into a low hum, buzzing with uncertainty as Sarah's thoughts raced. She could hear snippets of doubt mixed with an undercurrent of hope. It was all there, stirring, shifting like an approaching storm. James stepped forward, taking a breath that seemed to fill the space. I understand that trusting someone who has hurt you is hard. His voice was calm but carried an edge of urgency. But if the past has taught us anything, it's that we can't let it keep us shackled. We can't afford to close our hearts, even when it feels safer to do so. Sarah felt the truth of his words as they wrapped around her like a lifeline. She glanced at the faces, searching for a spark. The young girl's eyes still glimmered with hope, while Tom's reflection of pain and betrayal seemed like a shadow clinging tightly to her. The air crackled with tension as Mr. Langley raised an eyebrow. And what do you propose, James? We just backtrack on everything that has broken us? No. James shot back, his intensity lifting momentarily to command attention. We do better. We learn from the past and make a conscious choice to move forward. For a moment, Sarah felt buoyant, drawn into James's passion. Their community had been fractured for too long. Could they really gather the broken pieces? Let's give it a shot. Someone from the crowd called out, unsteady but daring to break the tension. If you believe he can change, maybe it's worth a try. Other voices chimed in, cautiously optimistic, building in momentum. Sarah's heart raced as she saw the flicker of light igniting behind their doubt. Even Tom shifted, the lines on his face softening. Trust, huh? He said, visibly wrangling his emotions. How do we even know Earl Carter will keep his word? Trust is an act you can't take back. What if he lets us down again? The quiet fear hung heavily like dark clouds. Yet, with every heartbeat, Sarah felt a flicker of hope. She inhaled deeply, pushed back her fears, and stepped away from James just enough to address Tom directly. All I ask is that we try. Not just for Earl, but for all of us. This isn't just about rebuilding trust, it's about us all finding a way to work together, and that begins with believing we're worth it. The crowd leaned in, waiting for Tom to respond. It was a moment suspended between doubt and possibility, neglect and inclusion, fear and love. Okay, I'll support you for now, but I won't stop voicing my concerns, Tom said slowly, as if this admission tugged at a deep part of him. We all need to know that you won't falter. You need to stay strong for us, for our futures. Sarah nodded, feeling the magnitude of the responsibility settling over her like a warm blanket and an iron weight all at once. If we do this together, I promise we will fight for one another. The murmurs of agreement spread, breathing new life into the crowd. Joy began to rise in the atmosphere, a shared spirit of resilience igniting. But just as they finally built a bridge, a muffled cry from the back rang out. A young boy trembling, his face streaked with dirt, shouted, "What if it's a trick? What if he tricks us again?" A chill swept through Sarah and the crowd. The weight of that new doubt pressed down, creating a tense silence. Can we trust someone who has made us suffer? Tom asked, echoing the boy's fear. Sarah looked towards the distant horizon, a shiver of uncertainty coursing through her. Could they really build something solid from this fragile beginning? The past loomed ominously, a haunting reminder of betrayal. Her voice wavered, barely above a whisper. Maybe trust will only flourish if we dare to risk it, but what if I fail? The question echoed, rippling through the crowd. They stood on the edge of something new, but the hurdles seemed insurmountable. As Sarah searched for strength in the eyes around her, one brutal truth hit her: it all hinged on what happened next. Would they take a leap of faith or shrink back into the shadows, haunted by what had been? And there, in that powerful moment of vulnerability, everything she had felt and feared collided in her chest. The path ahead was foggy, and the stakes were higher than ever. How could she weave together a community so fractured, caught between trust and treachery? The murmur of uncertainty faded slightly as the crowd processed Sarah's words. Each face reflected a different shade of hope and anxiety, the push and pull of wanting to believe yet fearing disappointment. Tom's skepticism almost felt palpable, like a shadow that refused to lift. He glanced around, noting his neighbor's carefully measured expressions. You say we should try, but what does that even mean? What is the first step in this leap of faith? His question sliced through the mounting tension, demanding action. James took a step closer, his gaze steady and reassuring. We invite Earl back into our community, but with clear expectations. He must earn his place again. It begins with honesty, his and ours. If we're going to rebuild, we can't just pretend nothing happened. Sarah felt the warmth of shared determination suffusing the air. It wasn't just about Earl. It was about all of them banding together, dusting off the layers of pain they'd built up like a shield. We can hold him accountable, she chimed in, her voice gaining strength. But we can also offer him a chance to show us redemption is possible. A ripple of agreement spread through the few who felt ready to take a chance, but there were still visible pockets of doubt. A woman in the front row shook her head, arms folded tightly. You've got to be kidding, she said, her voice taut. He hurt us. How can we just invite him back? It's like asking a wolf into our sheep pen. Glaring disagreement seethed in the corner of the group. Sarah's heart raced as she sensed the mix of emotions flaring up again. Earl has his past, yes, but we also have our future, she argued, her hands trembling with urgency. We need to choose whether to stay angry or step into the possibility of healing. We have to decide what kind of community we want to be. The crowd shifted uneasily, the familiar scars of betrayal rising to the surface. Voices began to duel, some pleading for trust, others clinging to anger. The air thickened with the weight of lingering fears and unhealed wounds, leaving Sarah feeling momentarily lost. Suddenly, the young boy from before, still dirty and trembling, raised his hand again. But what if he lies again? What if after all this, he just hurts us more? His small, innocent voice ruptured the swelling tension, evoking a collective sigh from the crowd. The room stilled, absorbing the magnitude of that question. The child's words hung heavy in the air, cutting to the heart of their dilemma. Would they risk more hurt? As if trying to dismiss the boy's fear, Tom grumbled, "You can't just forgive and forget, Sarah. Not when the danger is real." "Then let us bring him back, but on our terms," Sarah proposed, her voice trembling but resolute. "Not just because we want to forgive, but because we are stronger when we stand together. We create an agreement. Boundaries. A real chance for change." A tentative silence enveloped them all. Disagreements began to silently dissolve as curiosity sparked in the air. What would that look like? Someone finally asked, intrigue outweighing animosity. Sarah took a deep breath, ideas whirled in her mind. "We come together for meetings, to talk openly. We set a timeline for Earl to prove himself. He earns our trust back day by day." Just then, a loud crash echoed through the hall, startling everyone. The creaking door swung open, revealing Earl himself, his face a mosaic of uncertainty and determination. The crowd gasped, eyes wide, hearts racing. "Let me talk," Earl called, his voice hoarse but steady. "I want to explain, I want to make this right." Gasps turned to murmurs of disbelief, and Sarah's heart thundered as she locked eyes with him. This was it, their fragile moment of truth had arrived. Would they embrace the chance for healing or retreat back to their fears? With the crowd on an edge, the pulse of possibility thrummed through the air. Their decision would shape everything, for better or worse. Would they allow him the chance to speak, or was the door already closed? Earl stepped deeper into the worn hall, his presence sending a tremor through the crowd. The faces that had once known him, regarded him as a friend, now veiled their expressions, teetering on the brink between fear and curiosity. He could almost feel the weight of their stares pressing down on his shoulders. "Please, just hear me out," he implored, his words spilling out hurriedly. "I know I've messed up in ways no one should have to endure." He paused, desperation etched on his features. "But I can't just stand here and let you decide my fate without me even trying to explain." Sarah's pulse quickened as she noticed a flicker of uncertainty in Tom's eyes. Even if many were still skeptical, the flicker felt like hope. Earl's voice was thick with emotion, and she could sense that this wasn't just about him anymore, it was about the moment of reckoning for all of them. "Do you know what it's like to feel lost?" Earl continued, his voice catching. "To have betrayed those closest to you, to carry the weight of shame everywhere you go. I've been drowning in it. I'm here to own that. But I'm asking for a chance to show you I'm more than the mistakes I've made." His eyes roamed the crowd, searching for understanding. Tom shifted on his feet, skepticism still etched in his brow. "You say you want to change. But what proof do we have?" His tone more challenging than inviting, yet a part of him still wanted to listen. Earl took a deep breath, glancing towards the old wooden beams overhead, as if drawing strength from the place that had held so many stories before theirs. "I'll do whatever it takes. I can volunteer in the community. I can help wherever I am needed. I'll even attend meetings. It's the least I can do to show I'm serious about this." He stepped back, allowing his words to settle like dust in the air. A murmur ran through the crowd, some were nodding, their expressions softening, while others still held tight to their anger. The little boy, the one who had spoken up earlier, lifted his hands again. "What if he messes up again? What will happen then?" His innocence cut through the hesitance, echoing concerns that the adults were too fearful to voice. I understand, Earl said, addressing the child directly. Trust is not given lightly, and I wouldn't expect you to trust me tomorrow or next week. He crouched slightly so their eyes met. But I will work hard to earn your faith in me, one step at a time. Sarah felt tears prick at her eyes, nourished by the vulnerability blooming in the room. The crowd was beginning to shift, some faces softening, others still wrought with uneasiness. They were teetering on the edge of something monumental, caught in a crossroad between past hurt and future hope. Maybe we can set up an agreement, James suggested tentatively, stepping forward. If we let Earl in, we'll establish clear expectations. Timelines and check-ins, just like Sarah said. But we also need to keep our hearts open, just a little. Can we really do this? Someone asked, their voice shaky. Take that risk again. The tension hung heavy in the air, as everyone's heart beat in sync, ready to decide what path they'd take together. Just give me one chance, Earl whispered, his voice low but intense. The room fell silent, uncertainty still dancing at the edges, but it was a moment of shared choice, a moment where healing could potentially begin. Could this be the turning point they needed? And then, just as Sarah felt heartening warmth spreading among them, the loud creak of the door swung open once more. Another guest stepped through, an unexpected arrival with even more at stake. What is going on here? The newcomer's voice rang out, demanding attention, pulling everyone's gaze. The room turned still as everyone faced the newcomer, a woman clad in a leather jacket, her hair pulled back but wild strands framing a face that bore equal parts determination and concern. She looked around, sizing up the tension that hung thick in the air. I said, what is going on? Her gaze landed on Earl, and for a second, Sarah thought she could almost see the whirlpool of thoughts colliding in the woman's mind. Earl's pulse raced. He started but then stopped, the weight of her presence pressing against the fragile rapport he'd hoped to build. I'm trying to make things right. Right for whom? She snapped, taking a step closer. Is this a circus for your redemption, or are you really here to change? The crowd whispered among themselves, suspicion flaring back to life. Earl glanced at Sarah, whose eyes widened, and this moment felt like a fragile balloon at the mercy of a pin. She's right to question you, Sarah said, surprising herself with the conviction in her tone. We all have a stake here. The room buzzed with murmurs, as people shifted, torn between loyalty to Earl and the sense of justice the newcomer seemed to embody. Earl straightened his back, rising to the challenge. I'm not asking for blind trust. I'm asking for a chance to show who I really am now. Not the man I was. Words are easy, she shot back, crossing her arms. How do we know it's not just another act? Sarah took a breath, feeling the urgency of the moment. What if we give him a platform to show us? If he fails, there are consequences, but isn't it worth the shot? The newcomer glanced over at Sarah, taking her in with an analytical eye. For a fleeting moment, Sarah thought she saw a hint of something admiration. But it quickly faded, replaced by the steeliness of resolve. And what makes you think I'd support this? The woman said pointedly. Because we all have something at stake, Tom interjected, the voice of reason. We've all been hurt, and we all want a way forward. If Earl can truly change, wouldn't that be a victory for all of us? Indecision played across the faces in the room, and the tension seemed to swirl like a gathering storm. Earl felt overwhelmed but oddly empowered by the support beginning to surface. The newcomer hesitated. Fine. Let's make this clear, she said, her tone sharper now. If we're doing this, we're doing it my way. You want to earn trust, you'll do it under my watch. I'll coordinate everything, and if you mess up, she paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. This community doesn't forgive as easily as you think. You could lose more than just their trust. Earl nodded solemnly, the gravity of her words settling over him. I wouldn't have it any other way. I want this, I need this. The woman studied him for a moment, then nodded in satisfaction. All right. We'll set up a plan. Weekly meetings, check-ins, accountability. The crowd erupted in murmurs, a wave of relief mixed with lingering uncertainty washing over them. Would this really be the beginning of something new? Name's Lisa, by the way, she said, lowering her arms as she stepped back to indicate the space was open again. Let us see what you've got, Earl. This community deserves the truth. Earl's heart quickened at the weight of the ultimatum, but beneath the fear lay a flicker of hope. For the first time, he could really see the way forward, even if it was shrouded in uncertainty. As Sarah and the others began to converse, forming a tentative plan, the atmosphere shifted palpably. It was as if an unseen force had ignited a spark of possibility. But just as they began to breathe in hope, another loud bang resounded from the entrance. The earth seemed to tremor, and all heads turned, bracing for yet another unexpected twist. Wait! You're not going to believe who just showed up. A voice shouted from the doorway, breaking the moment once again, rippling through the air with an electric charge. Was this new arrival friend or foe? The door swung open, and the bright light flooded the dim room, casting sharp shadows on the faces gathered inside. They squinted against the brightness, trying to discern the figure standing in the doorway. A man, looking frazzled and out of breath, stepped inside. His clothing was rumpled, with a wild mix of colors that seemed almost chaotic against the backdrop of the tense atmosphere. Mark? Sarah breathed, her heart racing. It was her little brother, the very reason she found herself embroiled in the storm of emotions today. Mark's wide eyes darted around the room, locking onto Earl. I heard you were back, that you're trying to fix everything. He stumbled over the words, his voice trembling as he took a hesitant step forward. But is it true? Is it really you? Earl's breath caught in his throat. He hadn't expected to see Mark, not here, not like this. Memories of the past flashed through his mind, the late nights spent talking about dreams, the laughter that echoed in the halls, the shadows that lingered after the fallout. Yeah, it's me, Earl managed to say, his heart pounding. The crowd shifted, their attention now torn between the newcomer and the broken man they were trying to understand. Mark's face fell, and the hurt was palpable. But you hurt everyone, Earl. How can we trust you again? Earl swallowed hard, his whole being reaching out for the boy he once cared for deeply. I know I've made mistakes, Mark. I deserve your anger, but I need you to give me a chance. This community, we're all trying to figure this out together. Lisa stepped in, her authoritative presence grounding the group. Yes, right, Mark. This isn't just about Earl anymore, it's about everyone in this room starting fresh. But it takes trust, and trust has to be earned. Mark's brows furrowed as he weighed his options. You don't understand, everyone's been hurting because of what you did. Not just me or Sarah. The whole community. His voice cracked, revealing layers of pain buried under years of frustration. Earl felt the weight of guilt crashing down, and as he glanced at Sarah, he saw her fighting to hold back tears. I know, he whispered, memories of all their shared pain surfacing. I'm deeply sorry. I can't erase the past, but I want to make it right. The room hung in silence, a fragile moment teetering on the edge of hope and despair. Earl could see the faces in the crowd, some hopeful, some locked in disbelief. This is a chance for us all, Sarah spoke up, her voice a soft yet steady beacon in the chaos. If Earl can change, then maybe it's possible for all of us to move forward. Isn't that what we all want? Earl felt a flicker of gratitude for her support, but the heavy reality remained. A simple chance wouldn't heal the wounds that had been inflicted. Then, with a nervous air, Mark finally broke the tension, tilting his head in resignation. Okay, I'll give you a moment. But I'm watching you. We all are. As Mark moved to join Sarah, relief washed over Earl, but uncertainty still clung like smoke in the air. What's the plan, then? Lisa's tone sliced through the fog, a reminder that this was only the beginning. Before Earl could respond, a low murmur rolled through the crowd as they turned to see someone else entering the room, another familiar face, one he hadn't expected. Wait until you hear what I have to say, chimed in a voice, sharp and full of a familiar bravado that could either bolster or shatter the fragile peace they were building. What could they possibly want now? The stakes were rising, and each turn led them deeper into the unknown. Would they find enough strength to face this next challenge together? As the room shifted in anticipation, a figure appeared in the doorway, casting a long shadow against the backdrop of the tense gathering. Lacey, a vibrant presence with fiery red hair and an unmistakable charm, walked in with purpose, her eyes sparkling with a mix of mischief and determination. Faces turned, a blend of recognition and intrigue rippling through the crowd. Did someone say they wanted change? Lacey's voice rang out like a bell, clear, magnetic. Well, you know I'm all about shaking things up. Sarah felt her heart lighten. Lacey had always been the kind of person whose boldness could penetrate the thickest fog of doubt. Lacey, this isn't just a social event, Tom interjected, clearly needing everyone to grasp the seriousness of the moment. We're in the middle of deciding if Earl deserves another chance. Oh, I'm quite aware, she smiled, unfazed. And let us be honest, who wouldn't want to give Earl a chance? He's only human. We all make mistakes. Now, it's about what we do next. What if we all work together to rebuild this community? An electric hush descended, voices fell to a whisper, unsure of how to react to Lacey's spontaneity. It felt like the eyes trained on Earl were also peeking into the corners of their mutual vulnerability. Lacey continued, her words pouring out, we could organize community events, market days, fairs, cleanup drives, whatever it takes. She turned to the townsfolk. It's about more than Earl. It's about all of us re-establishing what has been lost. We can unite in joy or push against one another in anger, but why not choose joy? Earl found himself inspired by her passion. I'll personally fund some events. I want to get involved, show you all that I am committed to change, he said, feeling a sense of hope swell within him. The mention of funding caused a ripple of conversations to surge through the crowd, cautious optimism pressing against the skepticism that had held them vacuously in place. Children peeked out from behind their parents, eyes wide with curiosity, their hope embedded with the idea of a future bulging with laughter and connection. What kind of events? Someone shouted from the back, vibrant anticipation emerging among the previously tight-lipped villagers. Let's kick things off with a town fair. Sarah piped in, her excitement mixed with the realization that she was finally stepping into her role, the girl at the diner who had always wanted to create community. With games, food, and music. A celebration of us all, for our strengths and our resilience. The crowd erupted with murmurs of approval mixed with doubt. But can we really trust him? One voice rang out, echoing the collective hesitation. Trust is built over time, Lacey chimed in, and it starts with allowing one another to make these first steps. Everyone deserves that chance. Earl will need to prove himself. But if he stumbles, we hold him accountable, together. Mark stepped forward, glancing at Sarah before addressing the crowd. I'll help organize things. If we're going to embrace this change, let us ensure it's for real. For a chance to heal. Earl felt a sense of lightness rising within him, grateful for the willingness of the townsfolk to consider a new direction, despite the scars of their past. As for me, he said, his voice steady, I'll gladly step into the work it takes to earn back your trust. Each successful event, I hope, will be a testament to that commitment. Lacey grinned, fanning the flames of hope. Sounds like a startup plan, folks. We can tear down the walls together, brick by brick. Excitement simmered and spread through the crowd. Everyone was buzzing, and smiles began to break through faces that had once worn deep lines of distrust. Hope was creeping in like sunlight shining through clouds, and so the discussion rolled into action as they exchanged ideas, enkindling the will to defy their past and embrace a future that shimmered like golden light. Later that evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in warm shades of orange and purple, there was an exhilarating sense of possibility swirling around Sarah. Standing side by side with James, Tom, and all their friends, they embraced the uncertainty, realizing together that true change often embarks from shared struggle and collective spirit. With hands held high, they forged a pact, a promise to repair their community, encourage each other, share laughter and a few tears, because within those first steps lie the seeds of new beginnings. Earl stood back, witnessing a vibrant tapestry of humanity form before his eyes. This was no longer just about him. It was about them. In that moment, he understood their resilience, their determination to trust again, and he silently vowed to uphold their belief in change. As Sarah turned to the hopeful faces of her community, laughter bubbled up from within her. Every heartbeat was now singing a song of new possibility, resilience blossoming like wildflowers along a cracked sidewalk. This wasn't just the end of one story, it was the flourishing start of many more, and she felt honored to be a part of it. Now, as they embarked on this promise of renewal, one thought echoed brightly in her mind. Together, we can be the change we wish to see in our world. She exclaimed, her heart glowing fiercely. The crowd erupted with cheers, their voices resonating through the night, a sweet anthem of hope, freedom, and the power of unity. Now, if you feel as inspired as I do, this is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now to the channel so you don't miss our next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and keep the magic going for stories just like this. Comment your reactions and feelings about this uplifting ending, and let's keep this conversation alive. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible transformation. Together, we can spread the message of hope and community like wildfire.